Day 9 of Broncos training camp, another jog through for the team, but there's still plenty to talk about. Hello, and thank you for joining us for our Broncos training camp daily recap. I'm Phil Milani, alongside Nick Ferguson and Aric DiLalla. Guys, let's start out by talking a little bit about Russell Wilson, heading into year 11, right? Can he still move like he used to?
Yes, he can, and we've heard a lot of negative things, at least I have, roaming these sidelines during training camp. And to those people, I say, well, you're known to spit a lot of hot air like blow dryers. But when it comes to Russell Wilson and being able to escape the pocket, just look to what we saw yesterday when he was moving to his right. Greg Dosage just kind of stopped. And I'll say that when you think about Russell Wilson, he's given us a little of Xavier X-Man. I want you to stop and I want you to do these things. So he's having that connection with those players. So, no, we don't have to worry about Russell as far as, a guy who can't run anymore because he still has that ability to extend plays.
I like blow dryers. I blow dry my hair every morning. That's how it looks like this.
But you don't blow dry with a lot of criticism, though.
There you go. That's exactly.
That's the whole thing.
Exactly. Aric, what have you seen from Russ? I mean, he still can move around.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a difference between what he used to do early in his career and kind of run around all the time or scramble or take off or have these big long runs down the sideline and being able to move within the framework of the pocket or escape and make a play or scramble for a first down. He's definitely still able to do the latter, and I think his game's just evolved as he's gotten older. I definitely don't think it's something he cannot do anymore. If anything, I think he has a better ability to stand in the pocket and make those throws, to get out and get those big chunk gains. And listen, you don't want him getting hit anyway. And so for him to have that ability to move around and still operate within the framework of the pocket, which if we go back to the very beginning of this offense being installed, Nathaniel Hackett and Russ both said the number one thing is you got to be able to make completions from the pocket. We're seeing that from Russell Wilson. And so as far as the movement stuff goes, I'm not worried.
Well, more important thing that he's able to do with his ability is that he's able to save the offensive lineman. I know most people are saying because he's a mobile quarterback, the Broncos offensive line may see more holding calls, but I don't look at it that way. I see his mobility being able to save them because if you get beat on the inside, his mobility will make you look much better because he can escape out of the pocket. So when you watch film, it's going to be like, oh, it was a bad play. No, Russell turned a bad play into a good play.
Makes some of those offensive linemen look good. Speaking of offensive linemen, Billy Turner, the Broncos bring him in this offseason, thinking maybe he might fit in that right tackle role. Aric, we heard from Nathaniel Hackett today, says he's on track to play week 1.
Yeah, he and Randy Gregory are both still on the PUP list. They have not practiced yet during training camp, did not do anything during the offseason program either, and now we're almost at the end of 2 weeks of training camp, so you start to wonder, when are they going to get back out there? But it sounds like week 1 has always been the goal for those guys and for KJ Hamler. Sounds like they're on track. I do think at some point they need to get out here. They need to practice. You don't necessarily need live reps, I don't think, if you're Randy Gregory, but you've got to work within the framework of this defense. You've got to figure out what it's like to work alongside Draymond Jones or Deshaun Williams, deal with some of the run fits, all that sort of stuff. You need some reps out here in order to be ready for week 1 because this is not a guy that's dealing with an injury that popped up during training camp, has been out a few weeks. He hasn't been on the field in months. So I think for both those guys, the sooner they can get out here, the better. And, I'd feel a lot more comfortable if by the end of August, they've been out here for a few days.
I don't understand this whole notion of they are on track. I mean, to be on track, like Aric said, you need to be out there on the field getting those quality reps because it boils down to, do you have the chemistry? But also, we live in Denver. The altitude is definitely an issue. Now you wonder about your conditioning and can you actually get out there and give quality reps? And when Randy Gregory comes back, how many reps do we think that he's going to get in the game? Is he going to be on somewhat of a
third
pitch
downs
count or something like that? I don't know, but we need to see these players get out there and at least move around and give us some kind of indication of where they are.
In my mind, 2 weeks is kind of the framework ahead of that week 1 game. You think about how a lot of teams treat players coming off IR in the middle of the season. They get activated for that, that practice week. They go through that first week. They don't play. And then that second week is when you see them ramp up and get ready. And then they're on a pitch count from there. So, like Nick mentioned, it might just be third downs in Seattle for Randy Gregory. Might be a little bit easier, I think, for Billy Turner to get a full workload from the start.
A lot of talk about these jog-through practices. One thing that came up today was the notion of tackling, not practicing tackling. Do you need to do that in these practices against your teammates?
Well, before I thought that, being as a guy that the way that we had training camp was always physical once you put the pads on. But I have recently changed in my older age, and I started to realize there are different ways that you can approach things from a coaching standpoint. These days that we have so many walkthroughs, you can walk through your gaps. And if you're a guy like Josie Jewell, you want to know exactly where DJ Jones is going to fit, where Draymond Jones is going to fit. And you can just kind of walk that, because now it becomes visual. I mean, a lot of these guys have played enough football already. If you have every guy on the same page, walking and making sure they know their alignment and their assignment, I don't think it's going to be as big of a deal as some people are making it out to be.
You talk to the guys, every single player says, I feel fresh, I feel great. Seems like maybe that's more important.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about risk management. Anything that you do out here, getting these guys ready for week 1 for the season, it's all about how hard can you push them to get them ready without having them suffer an injury. It's just not worth it to do live tackling. I mean, very few teams across the league do any of it. If you do it, it's normally in kind of a very limited basis. Maybe in the red zone, you just do a couple of live plays. We saw that the last few years here, that you do a little bit of red zone live work and that's it. But I just think that I'd much rather, say week 1's a little bit sloppy. You have 3 or 4 missed tackles. To me, that's a price I'm willing to pay if it means that guys aren't getting hurt during training camp, taking those hits. You've got the preseason games for the young guys that maybe need to do it a little bit more, competing for a job, special teams, you're showing you can do it there. All those things work themselves out in preseason. But for the starters, they don't need that extra weight on their bodies. They're going to be fun.
We're talking about minimizing risk. The last thing we wanted to talk about here today was just about special teams. Do you think guys in starting positions should be playing special teams?
Yeah, absolutely. And here's why. It incentivizes the skill set that you have on special teams. Having, not saying that you need every single guy who's a starter on special teams, but having a guy sprinkle and around, maybe punt return, punt team, it definitely helps. And the reason that I know is because I played special teams my entire 10-year career. But when you get a guy who's a starter, and he's playing on special teams, what it says to those other guys who may be the second and third tier guys, we take this unit serious. And let's be totally honest, this is a unit that's been problematic for the Broncos for a while. So it doesn't hurt to have some starters, not all, but some starters on this unit.
I don't think so.
What do you mean they shouldn't? Why?
I hear what Nick's saying. He's a former player. He probably knows better than I do. But last year in Jacksonville, Josie Jewell was your best defensive player on the field. He runs down and makes a great tackle and punt coverage, and he's out for the season. I get the injuries can happen on any play, but again, it goes down to minimizing the chances that something like this is going to happen. If it's a spot situation, you need somebody to fill in. That's one thing. But I just want to keep my best players as healthy as they possibly can be. And if that means giving up a couple yards here or there, I'm willing to do it. But
Come on, Eric. We can't put every player in bubble wrap. We can't do that.
Football players got to play football.
Yes, that's what we are. We're football players.
They got to play football, and I want them to play offense or defense.
So you're saying it's all talk. There's offense, there's defense, and then way down here, special things. Okay,
there's a lot of talented players that are reserve players that can go out there.
That's true.
And make those hits, make those tackles.
Well,
Jonas Griffith was a guy last year who did that. This year, I don't want him anywhere near it.
Well, they say like rookies, guys trying to make this team, that's how you stand out because that's how you get on the field. That sort of suggests that those kind of players play special teams.
Well, you don't want your team filled, your special teams units filled with all of those young players because now they're trying to gain that experience to become starters. Now they're giving up chunk yardage. You don't want to do that. This is why you need, once again, Eric, some, but not all, starters on your special teams unit.
Nick's heading in there to let Pat Surtain and Justin Simmons know they're playing special teams.
Yeah, they can be on kickoff team. They can be the outside guys. We just have them in place just in case someone breaks a long one. Those guys can track them down with their speed, right?
They're out there to look good.
Yeah.
You should be sitting down and having a Gatorade.
Yeah.
Oh, come on, Eric. That's not how the game is played, man.
We might just have to agree to disagree on this one. I think that's where we're at. All right, that's going to do it for us. Saturday expected to be live. It's supposed to be a pretty intense practice, so maybe we won't be talking about this tomorrow. All right, that's going to do it for us. For Aric DiLalla and Nick Ferguson, I'm Phil Milani. This has been your Denver Broncos Daily Recap.